This is the Mezger's Only podcast with your host Aaron, where we talk all things Mezger. So this is episode 7 of the Mezger's Only podcast. Tonight we're going to have Suneal from Zweck. This is Suneal. He doesn't have to be from anywhere, but
Yeah, accurate. Yeah.
So let's just get right into it. So Suneal, give us your background. I know that you haven't always been at Zweck. I know you had some still car related stuff. You can just start with that, and then we'll get into how you got into Porsche, what you're doing with Porsches now, and then the little Mezger stuff you got going on.
Definitely. Well, first, thank you for having me on, Aaron. I know we've been trying to coordinate for a little while, so I appreciate the patience, and it's something that I've been looking forward to. So where to begin? I've been a gearhead my whole life, and as far as how that began, I'm not sure because
it just was.
Yeah, well, none of my family are really into cars heavily or at all, for that matter. Maybe it was from watching a lot of Knight Rider when I was a kid, and MacGyver, mostly Knight Rider. When I was in middle school reading European Car and Euro Tuner magazine and making lists of modifications I'd do to the car I'd one day get before I had my driver's license. Yeah. And it's funny how that worked because since then, basically, since I started my kind of career with cars, that's what I get to do for a living. So that was pretty cool. I would actually make a Word document and put, for an E33, I'd get the Hamann PG2 wheels or, the Active Auto Work Gen 3 capback or whatever. I still remember all
Nice.
And that was what I did for fun as a kid. And I was always actually, first and foremost, I was really into BMWs before Porsches. And I started going, one thing led to another, and it was kind of weird. When I was like 12 or 13 years old, a family friend who lived in the town I grew up in Port Charlotte, he was going to Sebring a lot with his dad at the time, and he was maybe 7 or 8 years older than I was. He was in college, and he had an E46 M3 at the time, and his dad had a 996 turbo and a few other cars. And I ended up at Sebring with them in whenever this was, in the early 2000s. And after that, it was like, this is what I like. This is what I want to do. This is the place I want to be. This is the avenue for my car enthusiasm. So I started going to the track with him and his dad, and we were going a couple times a month for a good number of years. Yeah. And I learned how to drive a stick at Sebring in an E46 M3 in the.
That's some memories.
Yeah. So that was cool. And but at the same time, Porsches were always around, right? You're at the track, and I saw the stuff that my friend would go through maintaining his car to be a track car, and his dad would say, nothing's like a Porsche. I've driven Ferraris on track, I've driven BMWs, and the only cars that don't break are Porsches. I'm like, okay, noted. And when I had my learner's permit, he let me drive his 996 Turbo, which was at the time, that was the current car.
Yeah.
And I don't think the 997s, they hadn't come out yet. And it had a tune and an exhaust and a few other things done to it. So it had 550 horsepower or so. And I got on that on the highway, and I was like, okay, sold. This is
I can imagine.
Feeling. And actually, a few years later, this is kind of cool. That happened recently. A few years later, they got a 997 GT2, and kind of a full circle moment. So that was in 2008. Now, just a few weeks ago, 17 years later, we just finished doing a huge engine out service on that same very car. First time it had been done for, we pinned the coolant lines, did a lightweight flywheel on it, tuned, new headers, that big job on the car. But it was cool to see one of the cars that kind of started my passion for this, or was there the whole time. And it was also the car that put the bug in me to one day have a 997 GT2. That became a holy grail car for me. And now I'm very fortunate to have one of my own. So it's funny how you stick around the car world long enough, and you meet a lot of people, and you just kind of keep doing your thing, and same people or cars end up coming back around, and you know, you hear it often that it's not about the cars, it's about the people, but it is pretty interesting to see how small the car world becomes over time.
Yeah, that's true. And you kind of have a revolving vision board, but it's a real life thing because you just are around the same people, you see the same things. You're like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I do like that. Oh yeah, that's funny to hear you about to say about the E36. I also had an E36
Oh, you
M3.
did? Ah, I didn't realize.
Yeah,
Ah,
I think I've been told, but I don't know. I was the Active Auto Works like prototype car. It had everything
what color was
on
it?
it. It
White?
was white. Yeah.
I think I remember that car.
So
Actually, yeah.
white. It was here in Tampa for a bit. It went to a sound shop that my friend owned. It had Macintosh gear in it. It had it was pretty done up for the time. It was okay, but I mean, I
Not
still liked.
911, but we all
I
graduated
know.
from those.
I mean, I thought about it now, and I kept it. I might have just like stripped it out, like weight,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. Maybe it'd have been more fun. But then, I mean, a Euro version now that I'm like, oh, the power would have been a lot nicer to have. I mean, almost 300 horsepower is a big difference from where they are in the U.S. So, but yeah, and that's cool that it started 996 Turbo Life and then kind of just
Yeah.
evolved and continued on.
Yeah, you know, back then at the time, in our little town in Port Charlotte, there actually were a handful of guys who would go up to Sebring to these, you know, Chin, PCA, BMWs, whatever events there were. And there was actually there was a doctor in town who had a silver 996 GT3, and he would go up to the track together with him. He had a little hitch on it, and he would bring his R comps on a little tire trailer to the track with him. And in a few years, his son was actually a friend of mine as well, and I remember driving that car when I was, you know, in college or something. Like, huh, this is pretty interesting. And you know, fast forward many years later, I ended up getting a silver 996 GT3. Actually, funny story about that particular car. When I started driving at the track, I had a Mini Cooper S, an R53 Cooper S. And one time I'm going down the back straight or front straight at Sebring, and I got passed by that silver GT3. I'm like, oh, nice, there's that car. And it goes around turn one, and a little bit later, because I'm in a much slower car, I go around and I see the car backwards in the wall, in the outside wall of turn one there. Like, ugh. So it's, yeah, anyhow, it's,
No, that's good. I wanted to hear the origin story of how you got that, because I think that's what I saw you in when I first met you. You had the 996
yeah,
I think the silver one. Yeah.
yeah, that's, you know, it's again, another weird story. For a brief period of time, I actually worked at a shop in Fort Myers called AutoQuest Motorsports. They do a lot
Oh,
of,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I've been there. My buddy
yep.
picked up a trailer from there.
Yeah, a Futura
Yeah.
probably.
Mhm.
Yeah. So when I worked there, there was a silver 996 GT3 that was sitting in the showroom for the period of time that I was there, and the car used to live at Road America. The owner had this 996 here in Florida, and he had a 997.2 GT3. Sorry, it was the opposite. He had a 997.2 he would keep in Florida, and the 996 in Road America in Wisconsin. And eventually he brought it down to Florida to sell it. And I would stare at this car in the showroom all the time, like, man, like I really want a 996 GT3. Like one day I want a car just like that. And some time went by, and I stopped working there and moved back to Miami to work at a Porsche shop down here. And I managed to pull a few things together and ended up buying that car for, at the time, what was a pretty fair deal. And I picked it up in Fort Myers. I drove it to Miami that day, went to Amelia Island and did the Concours and the whole weekend up in Amelia. And then I drove up to VIR and did 2 days at VIR in the car. So it was like my first, like,
Just your first outing, just had to go test it out, make sure it's
and
good.
but the kicker was it was March and it was freezing rain, sleet, and snow at VIR. I'd never driven VIR before, never driven this car.
That'll make it a lot better.
Yeah. And it was then that I actually learned that I really do like to learn a new track in inclement weather, because I feel like you can learn the threshold of grip a lot better on a track when it's wet. You can kind of feel where the car will otherwise step out or lose traction, but at a much like lower consequence. And by the second day, the weather cleared up and we were having a good time. Ironically, I was there with my buddy who had his GT2, and so yeah, I got that car in those 2016 or 17, and it had like 41,000 miles at the time, and now it has almost 99,000 miles. It's been
Nice.
yeah,
Way to go with that.
it's been used and enjoyed and occasionally abused, but always maintained pretty well. It's gone to like 10 different tracks around the country as far as Thunder Hill and Coda, Road Atlanta, VIR, all over the place. So that car is like, I made the decision long ago that I would never get rid of it. It's part of the family. It's yeah, I'm married to that car basically, and now it's about to, I haven't told you this, but it's about to undergo a little bit of a transformation. It's going to go into
Wow.
life soon. Yeah.
You can get a little autometrics, a little 4 liter out of it, or
Something interesting, something so that was
okay.
actually what I considered. So it's funny. It began with a conversation with Jamie over at Dundon,
Okay.
a buddy of mine who he had a couple years ago he had actually crashed his 997 GT3, and I was thinking about buying the car for the motor and gearbox to build
Mm.
a 4 liter, and I was mentioning this to Jamie. He's like, keep talking. I think I might have something for you. So as it turns out, Jamie had built in conjunction with Performance Developments, Neil Harvey at Performance Developments, a 4.2 liter for his pumpkin. And very long story short, the engine was sitting in a crate with no hours on it. It happened to be sitting in Florida, of all places.
That's nice.
Yeah, because the guy who had built it, he moved his shop from California to Florida, and we struck a deal for me to buy his 4.2 with the Motec plug and play harness,
Yeah,
Inconel headers, the whole deal. Because
that's about to.
yeah,
That's gonna be rowdy. That's gonna be
yeah.
rowdy.
That engine, they had spun it up on the dyno at some point to like 9,500 or 10,000 RPM. Just
Yeah, I mean that's where it should be though for a 4.2 liter because
yeah,
you're at the race motor level, so it should be.
yeah. It has some crazy stuff done to it, and you can read about it online. They call it the 42R. It
Okay.
has two-ring pistons, custom crank rods, like beryllium copper valve guides, a lot of like DLC coded everything. It's a pretty trick engine. A lot
Is
of
it still gonna be like hours on the motor, or is it gonna be,
yeah.
or
I
is
mean,
it? Okay.
it hasn't ran since it
Okay.
was rebuilt. What happened was he put a 991.2 like DGG 4 liter into his 997 with PDK.
Okay.
So that's how this motor ended up off to the side. And yeah, so that's it's about to. It's been sitting in the crate for a little while. Shoemaker has no time for his own.
Exactly.
So
Exactly. Car things. I don't do those,
yeah,
but I
it's
do those.
the customer's cars come first always.
Yeah.
So, but
Just like
eventually,
look up who's this Suneal guy? Why is his car in? No, don't worry about that.
yeah. That's back of the queue. So that'll be exciting. That'll be fun to put in. I've been wanting to get to that 100,000 mile mark before doing it, and I didn't.
Oh, that's a cool goal.
Yeah, and honestly, the 996 feels better than it ever has before. Gearbox is getting a little tired again, second time around, but I love how that car is set up. It has
Have you done anything to the gearbox as far as like, did you change any gear ratios, anything
yeah,
like that since you?
yeah, it had like so at 58,000 miles, so like 30,000 miles ago, I sent it up to get re-geared, and so it has a 997 RS third, fourth, and fifth with and steel synchros throughout, and a 997.2 the 389 ring and pinion, and an OS Geiken diff. So it's pretty good, but it's just like any gearbox on these cars, when you use them and you use them in that kind of environment on the track or aggressively, they just
Yeah.
get tired. That's what happens. So it's due for a refresh. So that's going to get pulled out. I'm going to send that out to get rebuilt, and at the same time start plugging in everything else for the car, and it'll go to its phase 2 basically. So
Nice.
it'll be fun. It's yeah, I'm excited to see what happens. It's funny though, because after going on like the Smokies trip this year, driving the car, I didn't drive. I shipped it up there, but put drove the car back, drove it up in the mountains, probably put a couple 1,500 or a couple thousand miles on it that weekend. I'm like, man, this car feels so good right now. Like I don't want to change a thing, but it'll be good.
But you know it's going to feel better, or I mean, it has a potential to feel better. And I mean, especially if you're going to do the motor, the transmission makes sense to do it now.
Yeah, yeah.
So with that, how do you think that's going to compare to the Cup car that you've been driving around and all the time? Like, how's the Cup car experience? I mean,
Yeah,
that's going to be totally different from that, and then to the 996.
yeah. It's the cup is it's a different thing altogether. Just I'd say the biggest differences, sequential gearbox obviously is just a different driving style, but more so the lack of ABS. So my car doesn't have ABS. So especially when you're actually racing with the car, it becomes something to really manage, which is not something I really had to worry about before. I mean, I obviously always think about your brakes, right? Just are they going to be there? And they're always there, but the problem is the tires aren't as much
Yeah,
there.
because you're going to get to a point where it's going to lock, and then now you got flat spotted tires.
Yeah,
Yeah,
especially after like for an enduro for like I ran 90-minute enduros in the car before,
mm,
and as you get further along in that stint, the rear tires are what would give out on the car first. Meaning, there's a lot of weight back there. There's a lot of heat that goes through those tires, and if you aren't mindful of that, and you're driving for a position, like there's a guy in front of you you're trying to catch, or you're trying to make up some time, you'll put a lot of heat through those rear tires, particularly, and that's when I'll go into turn 7 at Sebring, for example, and at the end of that brake zone, I'll get a little bit of lock, and so that the rear end. I mean, you have a bias knob, a brake bias knob, so you can play with it and adjust it. The last race I ran in the car at the 48 hours, my bias knob locked up during the
oh
race. I
well,
was like,
that's not handy.
yeah, I'm trying to like fiddle with it
Yeah,
and drive, and so that wasn't exactly a safe thing. Uh,
I doubt it. Yeah, I can't imagine like something else you need to do while
yeah,
at speed.
but it's funny enough. I actually, if you were to take out the element of wheel to wheel racing and just consider like fun to fun, I actually have more fun driving the street car.
Mm,
And why? Mostly because it moves around underneath you. Like I like that car better on not on like the super grippiest tires. I like a tire that has a little bit of a window of yaw in it. Like
mm.
I run like a Falcon RT 615K on the 996, and I love that I can get the car to rotate and get a nice four-wheel drift and just moving around, and it's just very intuitive. It does whatever I want it to do, the way that it's set up. Whereas the race car, like you're trying to be fast, and sliding around isn't fast,
Yeah,
and as I mentioned, it heats up the tires, and then you don't have brakes. So it's not as purely fun, but nothing compares to racing. So for me, having been driving on track for almost 20 years now, like 19, 20 years, I consciously at the beginning was like, I'm not going to get a race car. I'm not going to race because I want to have a nice street car, and I did for a while, and and then it became not as fun, just when you're out there by yourself, and I was fortunate to have a good group of guys that we'd all go to the track together and have fun, just BSing around. And but then when everyone else doesn't go as much, you don't end up going yourself.
yeah,
The itch
yeah.
came back. I was like, maybe a race car would be fun. And it's funny how I ended up with it again. And it's ironically the my cup car is the first GT3 Cup I ever rode in.
Mm,
Like 7 years ago or so, my buddy who owned it at the time, we went up to PBIR together when it existed, or went out for PBIR for Moroso. Uh, I went up with my 996, and he brought his cup out there, and he had a passenger seat in the car, and I rode around with it and in the car with him. I was like, this is pretty cool. I can do this one day. And maybe 5 years later, he actually ended up trading the car in for a really badass car we had at the time at Zweck. It was an '89 930 slant factory
Ooh,
5-speed black
uh,
and black sports seat
man,
slant. It was like good as it gets.
That's something. Yeah.
Yeah, and we ended up doing a bunch of stuff to that, bunch of like service stuff to the car. We put a set of MCSs on the slant nose, and he enjoyed it for a little while. But yeah, the Cup car he traded in. I'm like, it had maybe 2 hours on the motor at the time.
Ooh, that's nice.
Yeah, it was freshly rebuilt by PM&A.
Oh, that's even nicer. You get the
Yeah,
little gold certificate. Good to
yeah.
go. Yeah.
So I was like, you know what, I can get a little bit of use out of this before selling it or just to see how it works out. And
Yeah.
that was a couple of years ago now. First year I had it, didn't really get to use it very much. But last year I did a couple races with it, Sebring and Road America, and this year I did Sebring and had a little incident with the car. First time in all that time driving Sebring I ever hit anything. And I was on the back straight during the enduro. The car in front of me kicked up something. I could see it on the video after the fact, but I went into the brake zone at turn 17, which is fastest part of the track, and my left front tire just had like no air in it. So I just
Oh, well,
yeah.
That's not me good.
So thankfully it was very minor. I just I understeered into the like outside edge of the wall. And just messed up the fender, and like it truly was like the most minimal incident, but I was like, damn. All right,
It still happened. You're like, oh,
happened.
I was incident free. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It was
but
so good until then.
thankful that it happened the way it did, and that's racing. Shit happens.
Yeah.
Car didn't get written off. No one else got hurt. I didn't get hurt. Drove it back to the pits. Drove it back on the trailer. Car drives, moved, alignment didn't even go that way.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was very, very minimal, but yeah, part of the fun that we chase. So
In that series, you're with 991 Cups and other things like that. Do you feel like you're super competitive? Do you feel like it's like how does the car like competitively? I guess.
yeah,
How's
yeah, it's a good question. So I mean, being that the motor was pretty fresh and was built by PM&A, that has a strong engine. It's still fully legal. It's a 3.8, not a 4-liter, so it's basically built to like the original spec. But I would say a 997.2 Cup driven well can be faster than most 991.1s, especially if they're a little bit more tired, or guy driving it just isn't as comfortable with the car or the track. So like at the last race, I think it was ahead of kind of all of the 991.1s, and then a chunk of the 991.2s, the guys who were pretty fast in the 991. And this isn't PCA, by the way.
Okay.
It isn't like IMSA or anything. Not like IMSA are running those cars, but it's varying driver skill levels, let's call it. But the fast guys in 991.2s are definitely faster, and the quick guys in 991.1s, truthfully, aren't a whole lot faster. It's the benefit you have with those cars is the chassis is a
Maybe wider, so
yeah.
you can have a little bit more track width there, probably the same. And then the benefit for the Dot 2s is probably going to have more track width and more power.
Motor,
so,
yeah, exactly,
yeah.
500 horsepower.
Yeah.
And in the point ones, they have the same engine. It's the same 3.8 liter Mezger. So only 991s with a Mezger, I guess.
That's true.
0.1 Cup, 991.1. But by that matter, it's not like it has more power. The chassis is just a little more advanced. I think it probably manages the tires better, the 991 chassis, and therefore the brakes and handling everything. But all other things being equal, it should be a little bit quicker. But at this level of racing and this level of preparation, not everything is equal. So it comes down to car prep and driver ability, I would say.
That's cool. I was just curious. I was like, I thought I remembered the 991s in there, but I wasn't sure how that worked. If there was like a 997 class, that would have to be a bunch of people involved in that. I was like, I don't know how many of those Cup cars would still be around or not. So
that's the thing. The 997s are. I can say I was the GTC5 champion last year. However, there were only like 2 other guys who raced last year in my class, so it's not like there's a huge field of the cars. Most of the 997s that run with PCA are tend to be modified, so they'll have like 4 liters or ABS or paddle shift
Yeah.
conversions. So they'll run in a different class, either like let's say GTA or GTA2, depending on displacement. But honestly, what ends up happening at these club races is you end up in a little pack or in a part of the field where you're with a couple cars that are on the same pace as you. Once you get past the first few laps and the field kind of evens out, and then you're just racing against whoever is on the same pace as you, and being mindful of anyone else that's in your class. If you don't have a lot of cars in your class like I did, then you're just racing against the faster guys or whoever else is around. So it's fun. It's a lot of fun. In the future, I think we're going to do some more HSR stuff. So myself and a couple other customers will be prepping a few cars, hopefully to run at maybe the Classic 24 this year at Daytona,
Nice.
and possibly the Sebring winter race they have there in December, but definitely the PCA Club race in January. That's one that's like it's the first one of the first club races of the year, and usually really well attended. So that next year we should have at least 4 cars that will be running as a team. So that'll be fun, and it'll be good to have some company, and maybe we'll upgrade to 991.2s at a certain point, or 992s when they get cheaper. Let's see how that shakes out.
I mean, maybe, yeah. I mean, I guess if you're gonna win it, I mean, if there's those kind of cars in that class, then you're gonna obviously. There's a reason they're there, and they're gonna be dominant for all the reasons we listed. I saw that Drew and Danny picked up a Cup car.
Yeah,
Yeah, so,
Drew has he has like a litter of race cars.
yeah, I know. Yeah, he's got a ton of things.
I commend it, man. It's hard enough to have one working. He has a whole shed full of he's got I don't know if he still has some of them, but everything from
Yeah.
Z4 GT3 to GT3Rs and Cups and E36s and E46s. So
Well, he's got Rick that works on them. If it was up to Drew working on them, I'm sure.
yeah,
I mean, it would be a slower, but he's got a team. He's
yeah.
locked in.
Paying customer, that's
Yeah,
important instead of shop owner.
that's
But
true.
yeah, I think I saw that they had a 996 RS, I think maybe, which is the last of the H pattern cars
Yep.
that they brought over from Japan maybe, or something like that, and a 997 GT3R. So those are kind of two highlights of those generations. Pretty cool
Pretty
cars.
cool stuff. Yeah, for
No.
sure.
Actually, Drew has a
So
9.2. We need to get out there together.
yeah,
Point. Yeah.
that'd be cool. Yeah,
But
HSR seems like continues to grow, and it's just a good thing. I mean, you could also, I wonder if you could get yourself into some like vintage Le Mans or some of the classic Nürburgring stuff as well, because
yeah.
there's I feel like the Nürburgring thing's kind of wide open. Like there's so many different classes for that, so you might be able to pop over there. We
Well,
could
you touched
figure
on
that out.
something really interesting, which is the kind of growth of HSR, and it brings up like something that we've been talking about lately, and that I've been thinking about a lot, which is you know how do people use their cars now, and what direction are people going to be using these cars in 5 years, 10 years, 15
Mhm.
years, 20 years, and obviously there's a lot of like legislation kind of up in the air all around the world, with especially in Europe more so than here, as far as classic cars go, in like big cities, and what you can when at certain times or
Yeah.
hours, like restrictions, right? I
Yep.
mean, you're probably more familiar with that than I am.
Mhm.
But like in London and Paris, I know there's some like very specific restrictions with that, certain days of the week or hours of the
There's
day.
Yep, hours a day. There's certain
Yeah,
zones like city centers you can't drive. That's why the hybrids had started off first, and the
right.
EVs like you have to zero emissions, and there's like for Germany at least there's the green emission tags, and they're like the same thing. There's different hours and days,
Yeah.
so it's just gonna get more and more of a thing.
Well, like to that end, it's just I feel like one, what's cooler than any old car, an old race car. Right, old race
That's
cars
true.
are the coolest, and sure you could like drive your old race car to Cars and Coffee and like be be flexing on the crowd, but like that'll get boring
Yeah, and
and
dangerous all at the same time.
and dangerous, yeah. And fun as people think it is to drive a race car on the street, I've done it before, and it's not fun at all. It can be quite annoying actually,
Yeah,
overheating and stuff like that. So I feel like in time, and this is something I'm curious to see how it shakes out. But my prediction is that I see more growth with vintage racing and racing in general, but specifically like vintage racing because it can be a very casual thing. Also, like you don't need to commit to doing, a whole season of Carrera Cup or
yeah,
Porsche Sprint Challenge, which besides being a tremendous cost is a big commitment in terms of time. Like you
yeah,
have to set aside 8 weekends, 6, 8 race weekends, plus test days, plus travel, plus I mean, it's a big build afoot, and it's a big time commitment if you have a family, kids, busy work schedule. So
yep,
I feel like the ability to like pick and choose some vintage events throughout the calendar year, in time, and I think that'll be a really really interesting venue for how like we as a hobby kind of migrate to using our cars. Look, in Florida right now we have this new super speeder law thing.
yep. I
This is
saw
getting
that,
a
and I
lot of
was like,
correct.
ooh,
But again, it's I see how it affects customers of mine too. It's affecting how they're buying cars, like what types of cars they're buying too. Like like how am I going to use this thing if I can go to jail for driving over 100 miles per hour? Or back in the day, one of the first shops I used to work at here in Miami, we did a lot of like tuning and exhaust and performance stuff, but also did a lot of escort, like custom radar detector installs. And no one has ever asked me about doing those in the last like 5, 6 years. And suddenly I'm getting a lot of requests like, hey, can we do like a badass custom like hidden radar detector in my car? I'm like, well, yeah, sure, we can do that. But what's interesting is like it's kind of like the writing is almost like appearing on the wall. Like if this keeps happening, we're not going to be able to use the cars in the same way that we're used to using them and have been for the last
yeah.
forever. You know?
I mean, a weird analogy. I don't know why I thought about it, but it's very much horses, and then we got cars. I
Yep.
mean, it's a very,
I say that
very
all the time.
sim analogy. Like they're used now, but they're used now at stables and other things like
Right.
that.
And
That
like
makes sense. And then you also made me link up to like I saw a Gran Turismo thing recently, and so maybe something we probably should take offline as well as making kind of a single mark HSR race. Like not it doesn't have to be HSR, but like maybe we go to um, Homestead and we do a single mark, like we do a Metzger's race, or we
yeah,
do something like that, like a 930 race, or it doesn't
yeah.
have to be 930s, but start doing
No,
that outside of an HSR thing and kind of an event, and that would be something, or just tack it on to a good old DRT.
exactly. No, that's a really interesting point you bring up again because it's one it if you had that kind of apprehension about doing anything like that with your car before. Let's say you've never driven on track, and you just don't know where to start. I'll give you an example. A buddy of ours down here, Sebastian, who organizes these air cooled breakfast crew drives.
Oh,
You may have
that's
seen.
who they does that. Okay,
Yeah.
I've seen those.
He actually did an ACBC track day with another friend of ours, Fabiano, and we kind of sponsored the event and helped prep some cars for it. And it was really cool to see, you know, just as you said, a like dedicated run group with 20 odd air cooled cars in the middle of summer, mind you, and everyone enjoying the cars. A lot of people had never driven on track before, and it was an impetus or a reason or a way to actually get those people and bring them there and expose them to something new, and everyone had a good time. And instead of cars and coffee or going on one of these breakfast drives as we normally do, we actually
Yep.
went to a racetrack, and we kind of did the same thing. Did it for a full day instead of a couple hours. Same group of people, more or less, and it was really cool. And I like that idea of kind of grabbing people who otherwise wouldn't be comfortable with doing it or just don't know where to start. And like let's bridge that gap. Let's
That's
make it
cool.
approachable and fun and with people that and have have a good time doing it with. That's what it's all
For
about at
sure.
the end of the day.
For sure.
Fun.
And you're not going to learn your car any better than at a track, to be honest. And if you've not done that, that's something definitely go out there and go find a track. It doesn't have to be Sebring. Sebring could be a little tough on cars. It could be like
Oh yeah.
anything. But I'm also looking for that next evolution. And I feel like we've done Cars and Coffee. We just got done talking about how many rally events there are. That's the new Cars and Coffee, in my opinion. So
Right.
that's the new thing. So
And it
what's
can be
next?
and it can be of everything we've mentioned. So can cars and coffee be dangerous? Yeah, if you get a little, overzealous exiting and hit a barrier or something, yeah. But like overall, not a very dangerous thing. Can driving on track be dangerous? Yes, certainly, but at least it's in a controlled environment, and there's a format and kind of there's a
There's
structure
rules.
to it. But the
Yeah.
one that can be the most dangerous, and you and I have probably seen this, is being up in the mountains for as fun as it can be, because truthfully, it may be the most fun and least structured and most like free way of enjoying your car. It could also be the most dangerous. I mean, it's the least controlled. There could be someone, you're aware of an accident that happened, a crash that happened a couple of years ago at an event where there's a motorcycle uh, coming around a blind corner in the middle of the opposite lane, and like you could be doing everything right, you can be
They,
going the speed
yeah.
limit, but that stuff can happen,
Yeah.
and thankfully, like that person survived and was airlifted and on the motorcycle, but still, like it's scary stuff that could happen, no fault of your own, and obviously you can also get in over your head and anything. Look, there can be anything on the road surface. There could be gravel. There could be dirt. There could be a dog running out into
Yeah.
the road. Like there's so much stuff that that's out of your control that it can it's scary when once you see a couple things like, oh shit, like this
Yeah.
could like your life can change truly. And for as much as I really enjoy that type of event, uh, as I get a little older, I'm not saying I get wiser or more responsible, but I've become more aware of how lucky I've gotten in the past with certain things, and it just goes to show like having the right like venue to be able to enjoy these cars the way that we like to is, we're seeing it too with more and more of these private racetracks and just racetracks in general. I mean, in Florida, we were talking about this the other day, that there's going to be in a few years like about a half dozen tracks, which is great in a way.
Yeah.
Not all of them are like accessible just to the public, but that's the direction that all this seems to be.
This country
I'm
club.
thinking
I
further
guess
up.
that's the other trend too, is you're starting to see like people figured out, hey, if we build this, people will eventually pay for it at some point, and then we can
Yeah,
have club dues and all that. I mean, more power to it, as long as it's a good track. And I think I haven't been on Flat Rock, but from everybody else was saying Flat Rock was incredible. So
man, that was I though my only. It's like one of those like once you fly first class, like you never want to go back to coast. Like that was a first class
yeah,
track. I was like, oh man, yeah, that's my only rub is that I'm not a member and can't afford to be a member yet. So it's I'll say I've driven a good number of racetracks here in the States, and that is right up there with the best of them. So kudos to them for kind of going all in and building a really incredible track and the facilities to come there too. But and that place is right in the middle of the mountains that we all love to go driving in. But still, like man, that was a proper track, proper big
that
track.
it seems just as cool as the one that I've seen on YouTube, the Japanese track
Hmm.
that Dino DC I think would feature, like, or maybe it's Larry Chan, or maybe both of them. But
Yeah,
yeah,
the
that's
Magari Gawa.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That and what a beautiful setting that place is too. Again,
Yeah,
it's just a matter of having the means to to
just
be able
just,
to.
just several million, 100 million,
Yeah,
who knows? But I mean, but I mean, that's stuff. I guess that kind of thing is always going to exist, but I think more and more that whole the premise is good though. I mean,
Yeah,
stay safe, be on track, wake up, and it depends on how things are structured because we have one here in Tampa, and
yeah,
the structure is kind of a little weird for like bringing in a guest or not bringing a guest, and
right,
times you can be on track, and it's not as much of a track as I would want for the cost.
right.
I mean, especially with Sebring being so close to us, it's not
Yeah,
like it's
you're a
that big
little,
of a
you do have that.
drive.
That's
So
but like you said, Sebring is I mean for me that's my favorite track. That's my home track
yeah,
where I kind of grew up. A lot of my formative years were truly spent there. But it can be hard on cars, and in the summer, forget about it. Like I don't want to ask me if I want to go to Sebring in the middle of July. Hell no. Like
yeah.
I'd much rather be doing anything else than wears cars out. Yeah, especially at that time of year.
Even for the 12 hours, it's still like it's like all of a sudden there's hot and there's no wind, and it's just I don't know. I'll do Rolex, and I don't do Sebring anymore.
Really?
It's just been
Yeah.
like cool for the racing events, and I like Petite because obviously it's a pretty normally if it's not raining, it's a great time
Yeah.
of the year to do it.
All these like enduro IMSA events are interesting because I grew up going into like Sebring to the 12 hours as a kid, and then for a period of time when I was at OMP when I was the motorsport manager there, I actually worked the event. It was and the Daytona 24 and some of these other big races, and it was interesting to see it from that side as well, like being in the paddock and working with teams and all. But then that was the first time that I actually stay instead of going for a few hours and hanging out and coming back or just like camping. Those are the first times when I was working at the events where I'd stay like the entire duration, the entire
Yeah,
24 plus hours. I was at Daytona for days at a time, at Sebring until the race was over, and inevitably there's some downtime, right? And it was very eye opening to be in like Greenfield or whatever it is in the
yeah,
middle of of Sebring or like on the Ferris wheel and at 2 a.m. at Daytona. It's cool to see that side of things and how people how I've always found it very interesting the like wide variety of people come to these events. So like you'll have
yeah. It's true.
drivers,
Yeah,
your
yeah,
team owners, your car corral people, and then you'll have people like triple fisting beers and like smoking a cigarette at the same time and like don't even know there's a race going on. They're
yeah,
just there for like the loud noises and to get drunk.
yeah.
So
Couch is on fire. That's
yeah,
not a thing. That's a thing that happens every year. Like
yeah.
it's for
I saw a
Sebring,
golf
it's
cart
wild.
hit like a half dozen people one year,
Well, that's
and then the guy obviously was
jeez.
not
Not in
he
golf cart driving shape. Yeah,
yeah he was not a paid driver, not a gentleman driver either, I would say, and he just like stumbled off the golf cart and hopped in his RV and like went to bed. I'm like, probably the best thing that could have happened just now. So
surprised there wasn't a knock on the door from the sheriff. Like, and here we go.
yeah, it's hard to keep up with all that at these events, but yeah, I think that's we'll see what happens in time, but I'm curious. I'm curious to see where this hobby goes in the next, like you said, it'll be like horses.
It's
And,
got to be, and it's got to
one
be
day.
coming fast too. I would assume that it's going to be all of a sudden be like, oh, and we're here.
Yeah, yeah. So we don't really deal with a lot of like electric cars at our business, but it's also
Mm,
been interesting to see like just even with all the new cars that come out, how that affects the older cars and the trend. It's like Porsche is not making any new air cooled cars. They're not making new.
They they could, and I've had this on board. They
Yeah,
could be. They want to turn into a singer tomorrow. They could, and they could restart recreate. They're recreating everything else. They're trying to do throwbacks. You've got the molds. You've got. I mean, you probably could make machine tool instead of having it hand built like they were in the past.
yeah.
You could bring it back. Like you could do. They
Well,
are
it's a
technically
bit of
still
what.
building them
Yeah.
because that one who just had a recommission 993 turbo, and it was done over in Germany like it's
Oh, really?
fully built. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
and
it's
that's what it's going to be. It's
yeah
through Sonderwunsch and
yeah that's who's
it's
doing it. Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, and now they're doing more. They're more commissions and projects happening here in the States in Atlanta, and the whole Porsche classic model as it's proliferated through the dealerships now is kind of feeding back more to Atlanta, and depending on how big the project is, to Germany
Mm.
from here in the States. So it's interesting. Like you said, could they do it? They certainly have I think the capabilities of doing that stuff, but I think that they're limited again by like legislative things, liability,
Well,
like
could they
emission
do
emission
like
thing. So
yes and no though too? I bet because I bet you if they built a small enough number, then they don't have to be controlled. I'm certain there got to be ways around it.
yeah,
Um,
and it has to make sense as a business case, which obviously
yeah.
we work with. We do a lot with the likes of Sanger and Gunther Works and
Mm.
Rod Emery and even Lee Keen and the Keen Project cars. So having seen and having seen the how that whole industry, the whole cottage industry of resto modding has changed in the last and grown in the last
Yep.
10 years or so. Really, 15 years ago, the concept of spending you know $300,000 on an air cooled 911 like that otherwise
Insane.
wasn't like an ultra like a GT2 or something
Yep.
that didn't exist, and now there are $3.5 million odd cars that started as regular old 964s or 993s. And does that mean, am I saying that I don't think they're worth it? Absolutely not. I think it's incredible, and I think for me, like a car like the DLS or like the Gunther Turbo, which at a different level. I mean, it's incredible what you could do with modern technology applied to these old cars and developing them into today's day and age. But there are also now more $1 million 911s than there ever have been as a result, or
Yeah.
million, 2 million,
The whole
3 million
market
cars.
shifted just because of it.
Yeah,
And then, yeah, I see that. And then like their turbo study has a Mezger motor in it, so that's
yeah, yeah. I mean,
which
they're
is
all
yeah,
Metzger based, right?
yeah.
So that they count. Yeah, but I think at the same time, because I'm a huge proponent, fan, and supporter of all the brands that I mentioned, or all
Mm.
the companies that I mentioned, and we work with all of them. But at the same time, I think there is a lag with values of, like, let's say, like the car like a 993 GT2 or Carrera GTs, for example. I mean, if a Carrera GT is you know let's call it $1.5 million to $3 million for something really truly unique and built by the factory. Uh, Porsche aren't making the new versions of
Yeah.
it. They may be recommissioning them,
Mm.
but there's not they're not going to add another one to the production run of let's call it less than 200 GT2s or 1250 CGTs, and so I think that's there and obviously from a performance and materials and like quality perspective, it's not on the same level necessarily as the new resto mods, but I think there's something to be said about Porsche having built a car, and I think the value of what those will be in the future. So I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, all it's just going to lift. It has to. Like an OEM market's got to be more expensive than a resto market.
Yeah,
It is. You got because you're going to get a rare color that happened, and it's all the same things. Limited production, rare color, never that whole combination never happening again. Even a recommission. I wonder how that starts to change things too with recommissions. Are they going to
yeah.
be valued less, even though they would have more into them than an OEM car? That's a good question.
Well, I mean, I have a couple customers who've recommissioned CGTs, and then we have like we have our Signal Yellow car, which
Mm,
biased, but I think is
that
the
looks
most
pretty sweet.
special CGT out there, one of one in that color, and factory paint to sample, and number 911. I mean, there can only be one Courage GT number 911, uh, but it's interesting to Porsche resets the odometer on those cars when they
Yep, yeah, that goes back to zero because of
zero
the
mile
yep.
cars. They're brand new. And you can order it however which way you want. It could be doo-doo brown and with whatever. I'm sure there's some restrictions, but
Yeah.
you can do whatever you want. But I think that it comes back to like what do people value more? Is it something that is brand new, or something that came out of the factory that way, and like that's like a snapshot in time of what was possible, and it can only be original once, right? Uh,
I guess that's true. But does it matter if it's going on the spec sheet is now like hyphened, whatever the new color
yeah,
is, and
yeah.
still new then? Or
Time will
so
tell, and I think it comes down to what's the market and who's willing to buy the car or commission the car, or what is it going to trade for secondhand after the fact, yeah, we'll see.
so what's the story in the GT2? I know that you
Ah,
got it. I was like, oh look, GT2. That's
that's
pretty
a
cool.
that's a funny one too. So, uh, like I mentioned, since I first drove that black 997 GT2 back in 2007 or 2008 when it was a brand new car, I was like, this is the car. One day, one day I'm going to work my ass off so I can get one of these. And I want to say in 20, somewhere like during pandemic times, 2020, 19, or 2021, I was, we do some stuff with Cantrell Motorsports up in Washington, and I happened to be on their website, and I saw that they had a car listed for sale, and it was a white 997 GT2. I'm like, huh, let me look at this, and I started looking at the listing, and their customer that had commissioned the car went absolutely like nuts on it, like absolutely wild. He did a you know 3.8 with EVOMs turbos and rebuilt transmission, tractive dampers. At the time, the car had like 3 or 4 sets of wheels with it. Uh,
Wow,
he even went as far as to put factory GT2 RS carbon front fenders on it and painted those to match.
that's
Uh,
pretty
so
sweet.
the guy just went like bonkers with the car and spent probably what the car was like worth or new more than what it was worth new on upgrades and mods. And like I love cars like that. Like I could never justify doing that myself to a car, but
Yeah,
like I love finding those cars where like someone has just gone and done like whatever they want, but done it to a really high standard. And again, something that the factory, just as we're talking about now, like what do we just
yeah,
say? Something that the factory would never do, can never do, isn't capable of doing. There's no price point for it. But like, people taking it upon themselves, whether it's a company or an individual, just going all out on a car and making something better than ever existed. And this car was an example of that. And and it's funny because that I guess this was in yeah 5 years ago, 4 years ago, and I didn't realize this at the time, but uh, whatever. Fast forward a few years, the car pops up for sale on an auction online on Bring a Trailer, and I see it. I'm like, oh my god, this is the same car, and uh, and at the time, the price that they were asking several years ago was like, no way. Like, it wasn't a concept or a possibility of like, can I buy this car? I was like, oh, it would be cool if we could sell this to a customer and this could end up down
yeah,
here, okay? Because like that's a really cool car.
yeah.
And it popped up on Bring a Trailer, and the same kind of thought went through my head. And fast forward, I way overextended myself and did something very fiscally irresponsible, and ended up buying the car. And I figured it was a decent enough deal that I could sell it as we do. And
Yep.
but really it was for me. But what was funny, just we were talking at the beginning of this conversation of like the little like circles these cars make
Mm,
in your lives. So I have a picture or a video from the Smokies GT event in 2018, which is the first year I went, and I went with my 996 GT3, and it's a video in the parking lot, and I was just doing like it's a 5 second video, and in this video is my car. There's a red 997.2 GT3 RS with some 5 lug BBS monoblock wheels. I'll get back to that. And there's a white GT2. Well, as it turns out, that white GT2 is now my car. That's the car that
oh,
at
that's
the
super cool.
time, Bert from Merit Partners actually owned the car and brought it to the
Okay.
event.
Yeah,
It was like his car. It was a car that eventually they sold it to a guy that guy sold it to another guy. Then this guy in Washington got it and went nuts on the car, and Cantrell built it to basically what it is now. And that I had mentioned that red GT3 RS because like I don't know, a year ago or 6 months ago or something, I ended up buying a set of BBS monoblock wheels, 5-lug monoblock wheels, and as it turns out, they came off of that same very
wow.
car that was in the video that I took at that event. So again, to no one else besides me, that's like a funny
That's
thing.
pretty cool.
I told my wife that. She's like, "What's the big deal?"
Or you're just like looking at your phone, like, oh yeah, look this video, and then wait a minute.
Yeah, well, it's because I knew that the GT2 was the same car. Like I figured that out eventually, but after I got the wheels, I was like, man, I think, and I looked through the phone, I was like, no kidding, like that all of these things are all next to each other at the same time. So it's just there's these weird serendipitous things that
The
happen.
universe just
Yeah.
lining up like, hey, Suneal, you need this,
So-
and you need this, and you need this. That's cool. So,
So-
pretty much you just went into building like a 2RS without spending the money for
Yeah.
a 2RS.
So it had. I mean, the big things are the motor. It has that 3.8. It still has the VTG turbos, the bigger like 68 millimeter turbos. It has, massive 288 intercoolers, and it has like tractive shocks, which are really great. I use MCS everything in all my cars for that particular car. The way it's set up, like, have I thought about changing it and putting a set of 2 or 3-way remote MCSs on it? Absolutely, but like it's just it's pretty good right now, so I'm not gonna mess with that. But it's really fast, it's really comfortable. But the one thing I didn't mention is the previous owner also one of the last things he did to the car was a crazy stereo and radar system of all things. And before I got the car, I was like, maybe I'll just like tear out that stereo because like I don't need a crazy stereo in the car.
Yeah.
Well, like now, after I got the car, actually I had picked it up in Seattle and drove it down to Rensport. It was the same week as a Rensport reunion a couple years back, and on that drive down, I realized that on that 1,500 or whatever 1,200 mile drive down, I was like, holy crap! Like this car's stereo is the best stereo I've ever heard anywhere. It's like having a private listening den or like soundstage for yourself. It's incredible. Like you're a 997 guy. You have
Yeah.
997. They relocated a shop called Musicar in Portland.
Okay.
Yeah, you may have heard of them. They actually are pretty popular nowadays with 992 stuff. They did it the stereo, and they relocated the mirror controls down to the armrest, like the door pocket area, and they put
Okay.
Morel tweeters and 3D printed enclosures.
Oh
for
man,
them. You would never know they're 3D printed, and like the most insane stuff I've ever seen. I don't know how they even like thought about all this and how to integrate it so well, but like the sound quality it's funny because I've thought like, yeah, do I need this car? Like it's expensive. Like I should probably sell it. And one thing, weirdly enough, that would prevent me from doing so, of all the things, the last thing I would think it would be is actually the stereo. So it's
that turbo life. I feel like it's I mean, yeah, it's a GT2, but still, like, it's a comfort. It's just another one of those things like you get in, and it's already going to be kind of sounded. But I imagine they went the extra level, judging by everything else the guy did. Was probably several $1,000s.
Yeah, it was a lot. It was. I think I'll put it this way. I think spent at that stereo shop like not a whole lot less than what I paid for like my 996 GT3. Honestly, so
that explains much. And then like tuning, that's the other thing too. Like you can have good stuff and it's not tuned or positioned correctly.
Right.
Like you just cool. You got this expensive stuff and
like now
you're never gonna change it. Yeah.
And that's a lot of like exactly like you said. A lot of with any of this car stuff, like you can buy stuff from a catalog, you can buy stuff online on like from Pelican Parts and this site and that site, and add it to your cart, and it shows up, and you can take it to a shop and have them install it. But like what I've found with as much as the hobby has grown, as many places there are to buy things, and at like with the community online, like there's so many options now that it becomes really easy to end up with like a hodgepodge of things that don't work well together.
Yep.
So a lot of what we do is just kind of go through the trial and error of like figuring out packages of stuff that works, like suspension, is I mentioned the MCSs, like
Yep.
coming up with like this is the kit for this 964 or 993, like with these uprights and those arms and these drop links, like we put it all together. Next time we try this, different spring rates, this, then whatever, and end up with something that actually, like you said, is tuned, like the
Yep.
stereo. Like you find something that works really well in harmony and isn't like stuff that can sound good on paper, but at the end of the day, it's got to feel right, and it's got to feel like part of a whole package, and and has to be like a balanced and tailored approach. And I think as time goes on, like I said, it becomes too easy to just more, more,
Yeah.
more. I'm gonna
Yep.
buy it all, and the car's gonna be the best. And
Exactly. I had a friend go through that recently. He got a 997.1 from Arizona. Seemed like it was super well sorted. Gets it. He's driving. He's like, I can't keep this thing on the road. I don't understand what's happening. He's like, it's his first GT3 997 experience. He had a 991 career S before that. So first thing I was like, okay, it's just got to be a new car to you. Maybe it's just weird and just do a lot more feels.
yeah,
That's what I was first feeling.
it just feels too good, man. There's too much to
So
feel.
then, so then I was like, I went and looked. I was like, all right, well, first of all, the last thing I see is you have a full track setup.
Yeah,
So then the camper was like super aggressive, and he sent me some things. I was like, okay, that's a little something. So he sent it to he lives in Charlotte, near Charlotte. So took it to GMP.
yeah.
They got it looking, and they're like, well, maybe they ordered road and tracks for a GT3, but these aren't road and tracks for a GT3. So they figured that piece out. So he ordered a new set, got the correct
For
struts
there
and
for
things,
like
because
a Carrera or
that
something.
must have been because they weren't even fitting in. So in the
Oh, it
rear,
made it fit. Yeah,
yeah, because even in the rear, because Corey from Collective Auto, he's got a set in his
take it.
white 97, yeah.
Yeah,
Um, and the way that they were sitting, you could still adjust the dampening.
yeah,
And for this guy's, it was just sliding through almost all the way to the bottom of the controller, the rear controller,
yeah.
like sitting there. And we're like, oh, that doesn't make any sense. So once they figured out the incorrect ones, gets the new ones in, and then I guess they put him like midway. He's still driving. He's like, man, it's okay, but I guess he got mixed up on how the dampening worked, and it just cranked it all the way up. And it's like, man, this thing still just doesn't handle right. Finally, I guess I don't know if he talked to GMP. Some conversation happened, figured out what was wrong, dialed him back down. Loves the car,
There you
but
go.
again,
Yeah.
it's
Trial and error.
just because the car came with the parts, you think that they're correct parts may not be the right thing, and or they might not be the right part for you, because not everybody likes the road and tracks.
Right.
Not everybody likes Structives or MCSs, and
Yeah.
that's cool that you're putting packages together. And I've had the same idea. I'll show you my website thing I'm kind of working on for. I'm working on a Mezger's listing
Oh,
place,
cool.
so everybody can list their stuff, and then parts, because I've gotten several people, like somebody hit me up for a 4.0, and I put him in contact with the guy in Europe with a 4.0, and so there's some interesting things and people that
Yeah.
are just like,
Yeah, we should talk about
so I
that.
do that, and then I would like to do maybe work with you and do some type of like Zweck package, or just start doing, okay, this suspension works for the 997.1, this works for the 9, and then same thing for, okay, if they're going to be BBI, like coolant inlet pipes, and then get this, and this. All right, this is going to solve your coolant problems.
Yeah.
And
And
then, like
look,
that
that's
sort of
what
thing.
it's not stuff that exactly like you said. I appreciate that, because people, it's something that comes from experience and actually working on the cars and taking shit apart and putting it back
Yeah.
together. And that's something that we take a lot of pride in. Like I said, we just did that 997 GT2 and big engine out, coolant line fix thing. We
Yep.
just did that on a 996 GT2 as well. At any given time, we have at least like one Metzger car at the shop that we're doing a big engine out service on. And what does that entail? Like a list you wouldn't believe how many O-rings, hoses, and seals from Porsche we get.
Yeah,
It is the most like boring, annoying list of, but it's like friggin' this long,
yeah.
and it's just rubber stuff that even if you don't,
Well, it's older.
yeah,
That's the thing we have to realize. Like, even
yeah,
though in our mind that these cars are a modern car, they're not anymore.
yeah,
Like they're just not. Like that thing you think you should change, yeah, you should probably have changed it.
yeah. It's
Like it's
it's
just
they're, the newest 997 is coming up on 14,
yeah,
15 years old now, and the oldest 996 GT3s are 22 well, the point twos here in the US,
yeah,
25 years in Europe. So and most of these cars have been driven to some extent as they're intended, and
yeah. They're cheap cars, track
yeah,
cars.
yeah,
So
like
yeah,
I even myself with my 996 when I got it, I was like, oh, I'll pin the lines when when something happens. And sure enough, the first time I took the car to Homestead, I had a
yeah.
coolant hose blow, actually not a fitting, but one of the hoses actually exploded
Just okay.
from having a
Interesting.
power steering leak. But anyhow, it's just
Yeah, you got to fix the power steering pumps too. I think Mike went through that with
and
his, and you got to
that's
do a cup line, and
yep.
there's a different that again. Those are like the little things that
It's
somebody might have told you that you might know, but you might not know at all. That it takes a certain part to fix it.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
I was really proud of ourselves the other day because there's we typically will suggest, like you said, replacing the power steering lines on the particularly on the 997s, because it's like a one piece line that'll run underneath the whole car. So you have a couple options. You can do the a cup conversion. You can convert to electric power steering if that's a more involved thing, but it gets rid of all those lines. But we actually had a Tiptronic 997 turbo cap.
okay.
So about as this is not an
This
aggressive.
is a this is a drive it around
Yeah.
town, sun's out, cool
So, but
car.
he had his coolant, or not coolant, his power steering reservoir, the little like clip collet inlet where the hose goes into,
Yeah. Mm,
had broken, and Porsche doesn't sell that part. You can get that car from Porsche Motor, or that clip or collet from Porsche Motorsport, but it was in Germany and it was like 4 weeks out. And we're putting the car back together. We don't have time for that. Customer doesn't have time for that. So we actually were able to source from the supplier to Porsche the actual collet. This is like
yeah,
a, you know, 80-cent piece of plastic that if you were to add up the collected time we spent to like search and acquire it was probably several $100 or $1,000 at
yeah.
that point. But we bought a huge pack of them, and now we can do that on other cars. And the alternative to that would have been replacing the entire reservoir, which was like $1,400 or something like that, and we sold
That's
them,
cool.
you know,
That's really cool
whatever
to think
for the
about,
cost.
but to be thinking ahead too, and not just thinking about that project and knowing that probably going to get more of these things. And
Yeah, and we can help other people too. Put it on our
yeah,
website, and if you want to buy it for $20, whatever, at least it'll get you out of bind and save you a few dollars. So it's stuff like that. We have whenever we do one of those services, we have a whole option list of the as the while you're in there stuff that
mm,
can be done, should be done, or is entirely optional. And we let the customer decide in some cases. In other cases, we tell them that you need to do this. We're giving you
it's
the
a
option to say yes or
safety.
no, but
Yeah,
you really need
yeah,
to say yes. And we take a lot of pride in that sort of stuff. So it's from the performance stuff to, like you said, the maintenance on these cars becomes more and more specialized as time goes on, and the parts become harder to find in some cases. Thankfully, we're very lucky with Porsches that you have a pretty good supply
yeah.
of
Porsche
parts.
Classic will be here for all of us pretty
Yeah.
soon. So
But even then, some of the quality of some parts has suffered over
I think
time.
so.
And yeah, there's a lot of, it's not like not like everything made in China is bad by no means. But when you see the quality change over
Yeah,
time from having been around these parts, then you have to kind of go back to the drawing board a little bit and be like, well, we can't even get this certain thing from Porsche anymore. We have to come up with another alternative because it just doesn't fit the bill. But
just end up buying a 3D printer and like, okay, problem solved. Now I have my own
yeah,
factory.
I know, right? I would love to. Yeah, there's a whole other conversation there. So,
Yeah,
love to do more parts manufacturing as well
that'd be
for
cool.
cars. So, as we talked about a little bit, but
Yeah.
uh, but yeah, it's fun. We're lucky to do what we love, and rehome and source cars for people, and get them into the right cars that make them happy, and continue moving them down the road, and making them better, and kind of elevating the cars, and their conditions and people's enjoyment with them, because we're having this conversation today with one of our vendors, and you know for example, we sold a 993 recently, and between a few good upgrades, choice upgrades on the card, it's like $30,000, and that happens pretty quickly these days.
Mm.
Once upon a time, 964s were 15 grand all day, and so does it suck that the cars are more expensive now? In some ways, yeah, absolutely. But does it mean that they also overall altogether are much higher quality? Like, meaning people are willing to put the investment in a car that's not depreciating,
Mm.
if anything, they're staying the same or appreciating, and end up with you know much better product in the end, with modern parts that are engineered for them. It's cool to be around that kind of that time we have in society, where we're getting the mix of the old and the new, and meshing old stuff with new stuff, and getting the best of both worlds.
Well, it's all treated as a luxury product now, and then now you can be unique by having the older version, and you
Right.
can't do that with every brand, and that's one unique part about Porsche is you can reach back and still drive that thing from the 90s, the 80s, 70s, 60s, and it still has that same DNA, and then you can still have a modern version at the same time, and that doesn't exist
Yeah, no,
in the same way, and in the same usability. So
yeah, it's one of the few brands where you start with something new. Like you could have a Cayenne or a Macan or a Panamera, and or a Taycan now, and your aspiration might be to one day get a 911, or get an air cooled 911, and as a manufacturer, as a brand, they've obviously leaned into that a lot too. The other day, I walked into the Porsche design store in Aventura Mall down here, and it's incredible. Like the surf collaboration with Almond and the
yeah,
Pasha
they
shirts.
yeah.
It's the stuff that we all like. You know, as a hobby and lifestyle, we all a few years ago it was cool. And now it's interesting to see how the manufacturer has adopted all of that too, and leaned into it. And I think it overall is good for the brand, and good to grow the market.
Yeah,
And
they're definitely looking to get the a younger market into
yeah,
it,
that
not
too.
not the same market that's been there for now,
Yeah, it's
40
aging.
years, 50
Aging
years.
is a
Yes,
nice way to put it, right? But
yes, yes,
it's the demographic is changing, and but look, we're young guys. We have a lot of
exactly.
friends who are in this who are young, and we're fortunate to be in the position that we're in. But it is nice to I think there has been some level of success to that too. Meaning, I
For
think
sure.
the ownership, or at least with like the enthusiast type ownership, has shifted away from kind of the sleepier, wiping the car down with the diaper crowd,
Yep.
and more fun ways of using them, and hopefully more
Yeah. Yeah.
vintage racing and that type of stuff.
Oh
And
yeah.
so,
We'll make something happen for sure. Yeah, I got some ideas and some things, and then yeah, just to get chat. I think we can end it here. I mean, we talked about everything I wanted to talk about, so that's all the cars
cool.
because it's a cool perspective you have from having the 96 and the Cup car and now the GT2, and now I know. Strangely, it's like now I know. I didn't know anybody with a GT2, and now I know 4 or 5 people with GT2s.
Ah,
It's pretty. So
so
it's a
they're
whole
only
whole
like
group of
a
you.
94 or something in this
Yeah,
area.
I know.
So
Well, we have maybe
rare
there
car.
could be a registry for that.
Yeah,
Who knows?
Mezger's only registry.
Um,
I see. I see what you're working on there.
yeah,
That's cool.
track them all down. Be easy to sell that way. So,
Well,
um,
Aaron, thank you for hosting this, and giving the opportunity to hop on here. It was fun. It was a fun
thanks
chat.
for popping on. I mean, it's been a while, but I need to make it down that way to see all the glory that is Zweck.
Yeah, heck
So
yeah! You got to visit the shop, or a new show, the new place in Sunset
yeah,
too, which you've obviously been a DRT and seen that, so we have a little outpost there now. So yeah, definitely. Actually, we're gonna have a little event this Sunday. So
Okay.
short notice, but if you want to hop
Just
down
hop
in
on
the
down.
black car,
Okay.
but
See.
yeah, cool. Well, thank you again.
All right. Thanks, Neil.
We'll talk soon. Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you for listening to the Mezger's Only podcast. Please check us out on Instagram at Mezger's Only or on the website at mezgersonly.com. See you next episode.